There is, of course, hatred for Saturday.
It's still the first fixture you look forward to at the start of every season.
Finishing 21st in the country is not an achievement. We sort of all just pretend Preston don't exist for a short period of time.
He hit it, the net just rippled, and just bedlam, absolute bedlam.
Hello guys, and welcome to the Sportsman Untitled. Today we've got a massive championship game to preview for you. It's Burnley versus Blackburn, the Cotton Mill derby, and I'm joined by Joe from Turfcast and Josh from BRFCS to preview this one. We're going to cover everything and then finish with our match prediction. So let's get into it. So Burnley have won the last 6 meetings of this derby. They've won it by an aggregate score of 10-1. Blackburn haven't beaten Burnley since 2010. Josh, is it time for some Rovers payback finally?
You'd hope so. It's been a while, as you say. I think they're on 6 straight wins and the record is 7. So it'd be nice to make sure they didn't break the record there.
And Turf Moor, obviously, kind of a tough place to go. How much is that going to make a difference heading into this game?
I think it's going to help, but I'm a little bit worried that after the week that we've had with a lot of the sales, that say if Blackburn get an early goal, the atmosphere could turn a little bit toxic, so it could go against us in a way. But yeah, if we start well and get an early goal, then some of the Blackburn players could end up crumbling in the atmosphere. But again, we'll have to see, because it could be the opposite if Blackburn get an early goal.
You mentioned the good starts kind of for both teams this season in the Championship, both kind of in the playoff mix-up. I know we're very, very early on, let's not get too carried away, but does that make this game bigger for both teams, given you're both doing pretty well at the start of the season?
I think with an element of realism, probably not. We always start well, and we start well because our first 11's a decent Championship first 11. Blackburn's problem for the last 10 years probably is that the size of the squad doesn't allow for injuries and suspensions. So I think it's quite a good time to play Burnley, because we've got probably our strongest 11 on the pitch, whereas in previous years we've sort of been suffering with suspensions and injuries and ended up playing quite a lot of the young kids.
And we'll come on to kind of the transfers in and out from both of you in a bit. Burnley started the season on fire with that kind of performance at Luton. Since then it's been a bit more difficult, even though you beat Cardiff 5-0, a defeat last time out at Sunderland. Where are Burnley fans at? Because there was a lot of excitement that you started the season on fire, and now it's a little less confident. Yeah,
it's not just the defeat against Sunderland, because look, they're a good side, and they've, similar to Blackburn, they've got a very good, a better starting 11 than Blackburn, but they've got a very good starting 11, and they'll probably fade and probably finish around 5th, 6th. So it's no shame in losing up at Sunderland. There are 40,000 fans there as well. It's a difficult place to go, but I think a lot of Burnley fans were having a bit of a meltdown because the week leading up to it we sold like 6-7 players. Then it turns out that we could be selling a couple more, so they weren't playing against Sunderland. Then we had injuries, and then we had like three keepers in the squad, obviously 1 playing, 2 on the bench, a couple of under 21s on the bench as well. So the squad really suddenly started to look a bit thin, and then obviously everyone's getting anxious about the Blackburn game, thinking we can't be putting this team out against them, we need some of these players back. So yeah, it were a good start. We started very well against Luton, didn't play too well against Cardiff, but we had the quality and properly punished Cardiff, and we just had better players, and that's why we beat them 5-0. It was never a 5-0 game, but we had the better players. We were punishing teams like they were punishing us last year in the Premier League. But yeah,
the stats for that game were mad, weren't they? It was like 4 shots on target or whatever.
Yeah, 4 shots on target. Obviously the first goal was the own goal from the keeper. But yeah, just the Sunderland game again, it has brought us back down to earth a little bit. Some have probably gone a little bit too far, because like I said, they're getting anxious about all the outgoings as well. But hopefully last week of the window everything settles, transfer window shuts the day before the derby, so yeah, hopefully we'll know where we're at a little bit on Friday night.
A lot is going to happen this week, I think, maybe for both teams as well. You mentioned them both having kind of good starts. Do you like to see Burnley doing well, or do you want them bottom of the league, and vice versa? Do you want to be competing in the Premier League together? Do you want to be competing in an automatic promotion race together, or do you want Blackburn or Burnley to be in the depths of League Two? How are you viewing it?
I mean, as a Blackburn fan, I've been there when we've tonked them 5-0, and I've been there when they've just been streets ahead of us, and much better. The best derby, both for the fans and for the local area, is when we're both at the same level. Where if we're both struggling, fine. If we're both doing well, then great. A good derby comes from 2 teams in similar standings going at each other, rather than one standout team playing a much weaker team.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I won't say I want them to do well or anything, but I probably wouldn't want them to be in the depths of league. Well, maybe. But in terms of the actual derby, I think the last time we played each other at Turf Moor, I think in the end, we did end up winning it quite comfortably. But the anticipation for that game, because I think we were second and you were third in the Championship, with Sheffield United at the top, and whoever won that match went to the top of the Championship. So it gave a lot of anticipation in the end for that derby, and the atmosphere and like I said, anticipation building up to it were fantastic. It's probably not so much this week because both clubs were a little bit anxious about incomings and outgoings and things like that. So in terms of the derby, then it is the best for the derby when both teams are doing well and have got something to play for, but I'd never stretched as far as say I actually want them to do well.
I know you'll be a bit biased, but I want that. Does this derby rank as one of the biggest in English football? What derbies around England? We saw Cardiff Swansea as well this weekend. Where are you ranking it?
I mean, it depends whether you watch football on Sky Sports on the sofa or whether you actually enjoy football. If you watch it on Sky Sports, I'm sure they'll tell you that Liverpool versus Everton is a huge derby or something like that. But, when you go to Land Classico, as it's locally referred to, it's a proper game, and it's a proper game by two very similar sorts of towns. By for all we say about each other, really Blackburn and Burnley are 8 miles away from each other. So we are very similar people. We all grew up in the same sort of world. We all know each other. It's just for those 90 minutes, it's heated. So yeah.
Would you put it near the top then? Top 3 in English football? Or is it just is it because it's a local derby?
It's my local derby, right? So of course I'd rank it really highly, and it's especially when you go in as an away team, it's quite daunting. It can be quite scary to be there, and the environment's hostile, and it's what you want football to be, or certainly what I want football to be.
And it's one of only, I think, 2 bubble derbies in the UK. I think Cardiff Swansea is the other one. So clearly there's a lot of hostility there, right?
Yeah, I mean, when people always ask this, and it's quite funny actually, because Burnley fans and Blackburn fans are always at each other on Twitter. Yeah, as soon as somebody says, what do you rank the Burnley derby, the Burnley Blackburn derby at? Burnley and Blackburn fans suddenly all agree with each other in the comments, and it's bizarre. But I do agree, like in terms of sheer hatred, is probably a strong word, but that's the word I'm going to go with. I think it's definitely up there. And some like you said, some fans sit there and watch games on Sky and they see that there's only 22,000 on, or there's only 25,000 on, and if like in the game at Ewood Park, there's loads of empty. That's not a dig at Blackburn, by the way, but the away end with the situation where they didn't give us the tickets, it doesn't look great on TV. So people see that on TV and think, oh, it's not a great derby, there's not that much passion there. But there is, in terms of passion, in terms of hatred and how much we want to win the game, it's definitely up there. 100% it's up there in my opinion, and you mentioned the bubble game. It's actually not a bubble game anymore. It has calmed down slightly, but it's only the 3rd one, I think, without being a bubble game.
I think when Souness was our manager, he said of all the games he's been in, the worst was Fenerbahce versus Galatasaray, and the second worst was Blackburn versus Burnley.
And he didn't run on the pitch with a flag in Burnley Blackburn, did he? So maybe that says something. And for your fans, you mentioned kind of it being a really local derby. It really does mean everything because all the fans are quite local, right? It's the people you go to work with.
Everybody works with, sets of fans from both sides. We sort of all just pretend Preston don't exist for a short period of time, and that's all anyone really cares about. If you come away from a derby game with a good result, it's keeping you happy until you play them next.
You say it's been quite a long time for you to not be happy for, right? I guess it's the same for you there.
Yeah, I agree. I'm quite lucky. I don't work with any Blackburn fans. But yeah, I obviously know quite a lot. And yeah, it means a lot. I do think at the minute, just because of that 14-year gap for yourselves, I think it means a little bit more to them than it does for us. But trust me, growing up, when I didn't see Burnley even play Blackburn until I was 11, and I didn't see us beat them until I was 21, I know we'll get onto some of our memories in a bit, but when we finally won in that game where Danny Ings scored, the amount of outpouring of emotion from me personally and everyone around me, I mean, that's something that some younger Blackburn fans could experience this weekend. Obviously, fingers crossed they don't. But yeah, obviously it's massive, and it's literally every time, no matter what's happened in the past, it's still the first fixture you look forward to at the start of every season.
And this is maybe more of a question for you, because obviously Burnley are expected to be up there fighting for promotion. But if you could guarantee promotion, but it meant you lost both derbies to Blackburn, would you take it?
No chance. No chance. We have to beat them. Just do what we did last time. Get the double on them and win the league. I'll take that if that's an option. But no.
What about for you, Josh?
I'd take winning 2 derbies and them going up. Not a problem.
No, wait. It means losing both derbies. Yeah, no.
No, I mean, I think it's slightly different at Blackburn because if we get promotion, we probably see the back of our owners. So we've not won, like you say, in however many years it is now. So an extra year to get rid of the honours, absolutely. Okay,
very different. I guess that's just the situation with the Venkys and the difficult situation you find yourself in, right? We'll get on to your memories now then. What's your best memory from this derby for you personally?
There's obviously quite a few modern ones. Obviously winning the championship at Ewood will rank very highly, but quite controversially for me, like I've just said then, I think my favourite memory was just beating them for the first time because I was still quite young, so football obviously means a lot more to you when you're younger. Obviously when you get a bit older it fades a little bit, you get a family and obviously they take over the importance. But when we beat them, because they actually went 1-0 up in that game, I can't remember who scored for you, probably Jordan Rhodes. He scored against us every time. And then we obviously equalised through Jason Shackle with, just think it was just a corner, it was definitely a header. And then it was one of them goals that Danny Ings scored as well, when it's just bobbling around in the box, you're like, go on, and someone's hitting it and it's blocked, and he hit it, the net just rippled, and just bedlam, absolute bedlam. And I think the year before was the infamous, I'm going to call it, done offside, which they equalised in the 96th minute, so we were just about to beat them, and then they equalised in the 96th minute, 55 yards offside, that's not even an exaggeration. He celebrates like he's won the World Cup. And then the amount of despair when that went in, and obviously we're only winning 2-1, so we've only got 1 goal up after this Danny Ings goal, and then they add 5 minutes on, and it ticks into the 6th minute. They make an attack, and I'm refusing to watch. I'm turning round. So when that full-time whistle went from the first time that we beat them in 2016, something like that. I can't remember exactly the date it was, but yeah, probably that one for me.
There's nothing better when there's a goal, the build up. You know what I mean? When you said the go on, and then that silence before it hits the net. That is, and for these games, that's exactly what it's all about.
Honestly, that's what it was. And just you're going, go on, and someone's blocking it, and then you just see the net ripple, and everyone just loses it. Yeah, it's brilliant.
What about for you, Josh?
I think in recent times, it's going to struggle from David Dunn just being onside at the back post and then celebrating in front of the Burnley fans. I think as a moment, drawing that game felt like a win. It felt like I've also seen us win 5-0. I remember Matt Jansen, I think he scored the 3rd and the 4th, and the game was just, we were so much better than them. But the Dunn goal is almost unbeatable.
I still get PTSD from that 5-0 because every time they scored, I think you played that one more time, and then they were chanting it. And now when that song comes on, all I think about is that match.
Let's talk about the company game as well, which I will refer to as when you won the league at Ewood Park. How much does that wrangle at you?
21st in
you
English
can't say
football.
League. They get.
Oh, sorry.
No, we don't.
They get precious about it.
We don't celebrate coming 21st in English.
Sorry, won the Sky Bet Championship.
Yeah.
How much did that wrangle for you in terms of watching that with your own eyes? And
it was just predictable. Do you know what I mean? It was. That's why we limited them to 2,000 tickets, because everyone knew what was coming, and the fact that they purposely lost a couple of games in the build-up to make sure they won it there is it tells you all you need to know about Burnley as a football club. Yeah.
No more from you. What about for you? Does it still wrangle that? They limited the tickets. It could have been 5,000-6,000 Burnley fans there to celebrate.
7-8.
Yeah, personally, no, because I got a ticket. But obviously, I do think it's a bit of a snide move. But again, you'd expect nothing less. What's he called? Is it Steve Waggett?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd expect nothing less from him.
He who shall not be named.
Exactly. We'll see. We can agree on that at least now. But yeah, it was just a bit of a weird move. But again, I can see it from their side. You don't want to see 8,000 of your rivals celebrating winning the league. So if you can limit it to 2,500,
finishing 21st.
There you go. So if you can limit them celebrating winning the Sky Bet Championship, then obviously you're going to. But yeah, obviously for me, I was there, fantastic, celebrated into the night, really good night, and yeah, it's something that I'll remember forever.
Would that be up there as one of your best Derby Day stories, kind of from a personal basis? I know we've just shared a couple of memories, but do you have any others kind of to share for stories?
Oh, I mean, it all goes back to Matt Jansen to me, because at the time I was sort of at the age where you really fall in love with football, and he was my favourite player, and we were so much better than them then. Every game that we've played since, we've either convincingly lost or been there or thereabouts, and we could have won it. Whereas to properly steamroll your local derby is quite a feeling.
Special, isn't it? Especially at that age growing up, like we've already touched upon, it just means so much more, doesn't it? What about for you, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, the 3-0 last year was quite good, but obviously, not last year, sorry, the year before, the Company home game, because again, similar thing, we were just so much better than them. And I didn't think it would be that easy, because like I said earlier, they came set above us in the league, and whoever won that would have gone top, but we just absolutely dominated them. And even in the first half, when it was 0-0, it was still relatively tight, but you could tell that we were the better side.
It's that point in the season. That's why I say it's good that we're playing them early this year, because that part of the season, I think we had Clinton Mauler, who had never played a game for us on the pitch. He was just completely out of his depth. The 3-0 2 years ago was pretty hard to watch, but again, it's almost predictable when your squad's as stretched as ours was then.
So you're saying this weekend's going to be a lot less predictable?
Yeah, for sure. We're definitely in with a shout. We've not been in with a shout. It's not felt like we've been in with a shout for a long time. And I think, when we play in the reverse fixture, they'll probably have spent a lot of money and bought a lot of players. And we'll have not spent a lot of money and sold all of our best players like usual. So the return game feels like we'll be massive underdogs, whereas we're competitive underdogs.
Agree with that?
To an extent, yeah. I feel like we are, well, I can only speak for myself personally, but I am a little bit anxious about the game for the first time in a long time. I feel like it's unnecessary anxiety as well. If we'd have kept the players that we came down with, I was confident that we'd have won the league comfortably again. I'd have been confident that we'd have won this game comfortably again. And I do still think that we have the better players and the better squad and the better starting 11, but it's just all the disruption that it's caused. Obviously, I put the loss down to Sunderland, at Sunderland, down to the disruption, and obviously this is the next game since then, and obviously more players could be leaving this week. I haven't checked my phone for half an hour, we might have sold 2 players. We could have brought in 2 players, so even if we do bring in the likes of Hannibal and stuff, and I'm sure we'll get onto that in a bit, it's going to be their first games, so again, they could be a little bit out for depth. It's either them or under 21s at the minute, so it probably will be.
Maybe will do then.
But yeah, it's unnecessary anxiety for me going into this game, but it's probably the first time I've felt a little bit anxious about the derby. Other than the obvious butterflies that you're going to get when you're playing your local rivals for about 10 years.
So it's interesting you've said that, because I was going to say, which team do you think this is more important for at this stage? And obviously Blackburn haven't won in so long and made a positive start, but if Burnley get beaten in this game, it feels like a bit of like alarm bells ringing, especially if we don't know how the transfer window is going to end. Yeah,
I do worry that it could get a bit toxic in the atmosphere and on the hashtag at the weekend. The hashtag wasn't a great place to be after the Sunderland game. That was the first defeat of the season, and the hashtag had turned toxic. So if we continue to sell players and bring in weaker replacements, some of these players that we're being linked with are, they're decent players, but they're not Wilson Odebear, they're not Luca Coley-Oshaw. Coley-Oshaw hasn't left yet, and hopefully when this goes out and everybody's watching this, he's confirmed as a Burnley player still. But even Sander Berg, like, we're bringing in Hannibal to replace him and stuff like that. Yeah, Hannibal's an okay player, but it is no Sander Berg, so yeah, it could be, if we get beat, for example, say if they win 2-0 or something like that, and it could be a difficult place to be Turf Moor on Saturday.
For importance for Blackburn, would you agree it's right up there?
I mean, we're underdogs, and we're underdogs for a reason. So I think going into a derby game as an underdog perhaps means that, it does mean the pressure's a little bit more off than perhaps your opposition. I would say it means a lot to both clubs. But I think the expectation at the Burnley side and the need for a win is probably higher.
Yeah, I agree with that. We're going to do a bit of Burnley transfer talk now, and then we'll do some Blackburn transfer talk. But feel free to jump in, throw in your opinions. Don't just let me ask the questions. Squad was absolutely massive this summer, yeah. Joe, at Burnley. So many players. I think Parker walked in and couldn't find any spare pegs in the dressing room. It's been absolutely mad. It's been trimmed down now, I think, we've seen in the last few weeks. But obviously you mentioned Sander Berg and Odegaard leaving. Who do you think is the biggest loss from last season to this one?
Probably... It's difficult. Sander Berg is the best player that we had last year, won the player of the season for a reason. But he didn't play a minute this season, and we started very well against Luton and Cardiff, as we've already mentioned. But Wilson Odebear did, so I think he's going to be a big loss. And there's some players that haven't left yet that could probably leave, like Luca Koleosho. I think he would be an even bigger loss at this stage. There's rumours of Josh Brownhill to Turkey. I mean, we can't be selling Josh Brownhill. Like, it just cannot happen. I understand that some Burnley fans,
top player.
Yeah, some Burnley fans don't actually rate him, because when we get to the Prem, I do kind of agree it can be a little bit out of his depth, but in the Championship he's a brilliant player, and after we've just sold Sander Berg, we can't then be selling more midfielders. So there's a few. Dara O'Shea as well, like he's obviously gone to Ipswich now. It's weird because he was okay in the Premier League last year, but he'd make a mistake pretty much once every 2 weeks. So he'd have a good 89 minutes, but then make a mistake that had cost us a goal. So a lot of Burnley fans were a little bit frustrated with him. But then when he started the Championship this season, probably one of the best defenders in the league. Him and Nesteve were a brilliant partnership. So to lose him as well, and then to have quite a few injuries at centre-back, as we do, even though we're quite stacked at centre-back, at the minute, he will be a big loss. But I think come towards the end of the season and stuff, when Worrell's bedded in and stuff, obviously we brought him in, then he might not be that big of a loss. But yeah, Sander Berg, Wilson Odeberg, just losing all the flair players. And at the minute, the only one we have left is Luca Koleosho. So hopefully, like I said, when this goes out, he's confirmed that he's staying and he's not already gone to Wolves or somewhere like that. So, yeah.
And we've mentioned, obviously, it's a better time to play them now than later in the season. But what impact does it have losing that amount of players over the summer, and obviously the new manager coming in?
Yeah.
You're probably expecting a slow start.
Yeah, well, I was, and then obviously we started quite well in the first two games. Obviously, like we've said, it's been pulled back a little bit. But yeah, it was the same last time on the company. We started slowly. I think we won the first game at Huddersfield. Then I think we drew at home to Luton, which in the end turned out to be an okay result because they went up. I think we lost away to Watford. Then we drew at home to Stoke. So we had a slow start on the company. I was expecting something similar. But then when we win at Luton, and obviously which is a very good result this year, and then hammer Cardiff, all right, as we've said already, the stats were, it was never a 5-0. But you're thinking, okay, maybe Parker can hit the ground running and really can kick on from here. But then, like you said, we had, I think, 36, 37, 38 senior players. Some of the fat needed to be trimmed, but we've ended up not just trimming the fat, we've ended up selling some of our best players as well. I think that's where a lot of Burnley fans are getting frustrated. So, yeah, I expected maybe a slow start, especially when you look at the fixtures that we have. I mean, Blackburn's a derby, so it's always going to be a big game, and form and quality can go out the window. But playing away to Luton and playing away to Leeds and at home to Blackburn in the first 5 games, and away to Sunderland, who started well, it's always going to be a tough start. So, yeah, say for example, if we beat Blackburn and lose to Leeds and we've got 9 points from the first 5, I probably would have took that at the start of the season. You
have already brought in some players through the door as well, despite those exits, Joe Worrell, Lucas Perez and a few others as well. Any standouts for you that are coming in? And we've already touched upon the players that could come in, that you've been hotly linked with, Hannibal as well.
Yeah. I like Joe Worrell. He's a good experienced centre-back at this level. I think he'll slot straight in. I think he will now be the number 1 centre-back alongside Esteve. Perez looked good against Luton and decent against Cardiff. A little bit out of his depth against Sunderland, probably didn't have a great game. But in terms of the other players that we're linked with, I think Hannibal will be a good player if we can get that over the line. But yeah, I think we need potentially another midfielder and potentially a striker as well, because I've got nothing against Luke McNally, but he's a young centre-back, and we ended up the last 10 minutes at Sunderland playing him up front because we didn't have anybody else to stick on up front. I don't know whether that was Parker making a statement to the board in his 3rd game, but yeah, it weren't great to see Luke McNally running around the Stadium of Light as a striker when he's clearly a centre-back, so I would like to see us bring in another forward as well.
You've been linked with obviously Jayden Anthony and Sarmiento as well. Sarmiento at Ipswich last season did pretty well. What do you need to add before the window shuts? Do you need those kind of wide players?
Yeah, because we've lost, like I said, we've lost the flair players. We've lost your Wilson Odebears and players like that potentially, as we've said, losing Koleosho. So yeah, Jayden Anthony, I think he was at Leeds recently as well. I didn't really do too well there, but he did do well under Parker at Bournemouth, and I think this one's a Parker signing. I would again, Trafford, he's another one that could be leaving, so I would like to see us bring a goalkeeper in if that is the case. Obviously we have brought in Haladke from Ipswich, who was promoted last year and did quite well there. But yeah, we definitely need more wingers. We've gone from having, the joke was last year that we just signed too many wingers, and we kind of did, we stockpiled on wingers, and now we've lost Sorore. Benson's looking like he's on his way. We've lost going to lose Koleosho potentially. We've lost Odebear, so now we've not got enough wingers. So yeah, these players, if they do come in, are pretty much needed.
Luke McNally maybe doing a job on the wing in the next few days in the derby. Do any of these Blackburn players, do you think currently right now, get into that Burnley starting 11? Because they've got a very good squad, and as you mentioned, they are favourites. But anyone you've been impressed with that you think could do a job for them?
I mean, when you drop down from the top league and come to the Championship, your standard of player and the player that you have in your team, much like Sander Berge having to leave, they are really top players for this league. I think we've got Sondre Tronstad in the middle, who's a very good player at this level. We've got Hayden Carter at centre back, who's a very good player at this level. He's sort of developed a little bit. He's looking really stand out. The new signings that we've made coming into this season have had really good strong starts. So I'm not necessarily sure Burnley have that much up front, much like Joe was just saying then. So I think perhaps a couple of our strikers could be in the squad at least, but I think you're naive if you say that their starting 11 isn't significantly stronger than ours. It's
been quite a big turnover of players at Rovers in terms of the key players like Sam Gallagher and Sammy Schmodik's leaving, but other than that, you've brought in a few key names, Maktar Gay and Yuki Ahashi and Andreas Weimann as well. Are you happy with those arrivals? And you've mentioned there the impact they've made already.
Yeah, plus Lewis Travis has come back from loan, obviously. Our previous manager, Jon Dahl Tomasson, seemed to want to get rid of quite a few of our experienced players and prioritise youth. There was a lot of plus points to that. It meant we got to see Adam Wharton, who is completely out of this league. And Carter developed and a couple of others really sort of developed under Jon Dahl. I think the players that we've brought in have made quite a good start. So what we needed was experience. What we needed was leaders. Jon Dahl was trying to play out of this league, which was at times great to watch. We blew some teams away under him. But, it's a different league as the Championship. It's a long league. It's a slog. And what you need and what John Eustace has identified is leaders, experienced players who, should stand out in a derby, should know what it is and how to play.
And you don't seem to be struggling for goals too much this season, despite losing the Golden Boot winner last season as well. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, last season we've had Sam Gallagher for a while now, and he's always looked like he could be a really good footballer and never quite got there. Maktar Gay's come in. I'm not sure he's the greatest finisher on the planet, but my God, is he a handful? He's quick, he's strong, he's great in the air. Yuki Ohashi, I think we've done quite well there because the Japanese league is currently ongoing, so he's come straight from playing week in, week out, and he's looked like a really good finisher at this sort of level. We've made some good signings, but we need more. And hopefully before Friday we bring in a couple more. We're in desperate need of a goalkeeper. We need a left back. We probably need some more speed up front, especially the way that John Eustace is looking to play. By the sounds of it, he wants quick, tricky wingers that can essentially whip balls in for Guay in the middle and Yuki to play off.
And what's the thoughts of the Blackburn kind of fan base on the Venkys right now? Is it an all-time low or just the same as always?
I mean, there's allegedly a funding issue. However, the club statement says there's no such funding issue. I spent last week watching Indian court cases to try and hear
the things you do as a football fan when you've got dodgy owners, honestly.
And then it was delayed because the judge had to go to a different meeting. So we just sort of the feelings across the book. There's a lot of fans that want to get behind the team because that's the only way. Who wants to go to the team every week and be negative about it? There's another set of fans that are just I grew up under the Jack Walker era, so the standards across the board are just nowhere near what we have grown to expect, especially I think if you're in your 30s and you look back at that time. I mean, half the stadium, it just needs a power wash, but seemingly we don't have enough money for a power wash of the stand, or that money's being prioritised elsewhere.
And for the Venkys, for you, what do you think of kind of them at Blackburn? They've kind of...
He's a big fan.
Yeah, I was going to say, from Burnley point of view, you want them to stick around as long as possible?
Yeah, I'm always buying Venkys chicken and funding them when I can. No, obviously, you never like to see football fans that are similar to yourself, be put through the ringer. Obviously, I don't pay too much attention to it because it's Blackburn, but I understand, obviously, the Venkys quite clearly don't know what they're doing. I don't understand why. I mean, I can say this because I'm not a Blackburn fan. I don't understand why they have a football club. I don't understand why they bought a football club if they were never going to fund it. I mean, it's hilarious, but I don't understand why they've done. What was their thinking of? Like, we'll buy Blackburn and then literally do nothing with it. Like, and they had a mansion in Lancashire as well, and there was some issue with that as well. Like, I haven't been paying too much attention to it, like I said, but I've seen bits. It just don't make any sense to me. It's like buying a car and just not using it. Like, you're just letting it rot on your drive. You just wouldn't do it, and I feel like that's what Venkys are doing. They're just letting Blackburn rot.
And for your owners at the moment, obviously relegation followed, there was obviously a lot of positivity, and then you've had the company situation. Is it still kind of positive around Burnley about the owners?
I think it's mixed. I think a lot of fans like to jump on them very quickly as soon as something goes wrong. Like there's been some big issues recently because they rebranded the crest into a monochrome crest, and then fans are diving on it. I'm like, is it really that big of an issue? Like they've just took the background in the crest is now claret instead of blue. It's just a claret and white crest. Like it's apparently easier for marketing and things like that. I don't know. And then they changed the loyalty point system, which in my opinion was fairer. I actually lost out a lot of loyalty points, but the system is a lot fairer. So I do feel like fans sometimes jump on them for unnecessary things. Personally, I don't think they've done too much wrong. This last couple of weeks where they've just suddenly sold everybody, and it feels like a bit like, and I'm not just saying this because they're American, but it feels kind of like an NFL draft style. The only thing that annoys me about how we do things is every summer since they've been here, there's been a huge turnover in players. The first summer, fair enough, Tarkowski left, Pope left, me left, Dwight left, we needed to replace him, of course we did. But then the year we went up, all right, we lost Teller and we lost Martson. I think we lost Teller because we didn't go for him more than anything. Martson had, ambitions of, playing in the Champions League. Obviously, ultimately went to Dortmund and played in the Champions League final, so fair enough. But then we didn't buy Howard Bellis as well. And then there was another massive turnover in players, but you're thinking, okay, you need to replace the Championship quality with Premier League quality. But then again, now we've got relegated, and again, everyone's been sold, and there's another huge turnover in players. That's what annoys me. Like the saying is never fall in love with a loan player. I think the saying at Burnley now is just never fall in love with a player because he's going to be sold within a year. So I don't like that side of it, if I'm honest.
Could be a hell of a lot worse, mate.
Yeah.
It feels like Chelsea though. Todd Bowley are doing it every summer. It is an American thing,
Chelsea,
I think, right?
Basically, is that. It's kind of what we're doing. But they keep saying in like that. I mean, I'm not a part of the fan advisory board, but they keep saying in these meetings, and obviously, you wouldn't have watched it, but they have the Burnley documentary as well. I don't know if you've seen it, but they say like to Canberra and stuff like that. Oh, we won't do this every year. We won't do that every year. But yeah, it's a third summer now in a row of doing it, and we need a settled squad. We need to get the core of a squad and settle on it, and not just have a massive turnover in players every summer. I kind of get it again this time. It kind of happens
when you're going up. Down.
That's the problem. I think for this model to work, we need to stay in a league for a while. Ideally, not the Championship, but if we stayed in the Championship this year and didn't go up, for example, I think again it'd settle down and won't buy as many players. Then when we went up again, we'd have to do it all again, and then hopefully if we stayed up, we'd then settle on a squad of players. But at the minute, it's not working because we're up and down and up and down. So we need to stay in a league and we need to settle on a squad.
I think if you compare it with Luton, though, you mentioned up and down, they've been very steady, I think, this summer and not really lost anyone. I think they prepared for the Premier League knowing that they were probably going to get relegated, whereas Burnley felt a bit more scattergun. But now Luton have come down and lost, Ross Barkley?
I think the ambition of... But from an outsider, it looked like Burnley went up and thought that they could try and stay up.
Everyone thought they'd do quite well, right?
Yeah, that was sort of, the rumour was, they play great football and they're going to go and do it in the Premier League, and that ultimately they weren't good enough to do that. Whereas I think Luton, like you say, signed players that perhaps they could keep and were going to be strong Championship players.
100%. Right, let's talk about the men in the dugouts. It is Scott Parker at Burnley now, John Eustace at Blackburn. Which manager would you rather have in charge of your team? Fight your manager's case in that case.
I think we'll both probably go for our own. Yeah. I think Parker is good for Burnley. I think Eustace is good for Blackburn for where the two clubs are at the minute. If Burnley were down at the bottom, maybe I'd say, I don't think Blackburn will be down the bottom, but that sort of level, I probably would want somebody that would keep us up. I think Parker's the type of manager to try and get you out of the Championship. Obviously, he's done it twice already. I think Eustace was brought in last season to stop Blackburn going down, and obviously he ultimately achieved that. But yeah, I'd rather have Parker because our ambition is to get out of the Championship, and he's done it twice already.
Yeah, I don't rate Parker. I was
underwhelmed when we brought him in, to be honest.
He's had success in the league, but he's had one hell of a squad and a load of financial backing every time that he's gone up. I think, for me, Eustace, previously we had Yondal, like I said, he was, everyone fell in love with him. He was fantastic in interviews, including slating the owners and the CEO, which was great fun. He made a running joke about having to get the bus everywhere because the CEO was so delighted about leasing a bus for a season. We all fell in love with him, but ultimately the style of play was far too ambitious for where we are. Whereas John Eustace understands the league. He spent a lot of time playing in this league. I think he understands the club as well, perhaps more in terms of the community and what people want. It is Artet Labor. It is, a lot of effort, a lot of experience, wise old heads, and a couple of flair players in there. So, I think Burnley do better with John Eustace than they will with Scott Parker.
I think I met and interviewed John Lord Thompson a few times, and he was great. And like you say, he would come out with those things. But perhaps there's progress in the fact that Eustace is maybe more sticking to the straight and narrow, and not peeing off the owners.
Not causing chaos in the boardroom. And he was banned from speaking to the press for a couple of weeks because he refused to say what the club wanted him to say. And as a club that have been through the ringer quite a lot in recent years, it was good to have a manager that would come out and just not play ball and just say, this isn't good enough. I asked for these players, I got these players. Why are you not playing him? Well, I'm not playing him because he's not good enough. It was really good to have somebody saying what we wanted them to say. But, realistically, like we saw towards the end of last season, it was going south very quick.
I think this is a big season for Parker when, as you mentioned, you look at the Fulham team, he got up through the playoffs. They probably should have won the league.
For sure,
he did well with Bournemouth, but again, a very good squad. If players are leaving, as we're seeing at Burnley, and they don't have the best squad in the league by the time the window closes, it feels like a big season for him to prove himself.
I think so. I think it is. I think he's come in expecting to get out the league with us again and kind of rebuild his reputation. But I think the issue that a lot of Burnley fans have, and again I can only speak for myself, but what I was frustrated with when we appointed him is, yes, he's a good manager in this league, and yes, he could get us out of the league again, but then he's not good enough for the Premier League, so then we'll have another season like last season. Fulham and Bournemouth both went up and both sacked him when he was in the Premier League. He didn't do very well at Club Brugge. But then I'm starting to think, let's stop getting ahead of yourself here, Joe. Like, we need to get out of the league first. So get out of the league, reassess next year. So, but yeah, obviously selling a lot of players now. Maybe he did seem quite annoyed actually the other day in his post-Sunderland interview. He did seem quite annoyed. He mentioned the disruption. So did Josh Brownhill and so did Maxime Esteve. So I think he's already a little bit annoyed. But again, hopefully, because we're bringing in some players that he's been linked with before and worked with before. So hopefully that'll help him sort of like come down a little bit. But yeah, I think he's come in expecting to do well with us because of the players that we had. I'm sure Alan, the chairman, did say to him there's going to be sales. So we'll have to see where we're at on Friday.
And you mentioned the getting out of the Championship, failing in the Premier League. First manager that springs to mind there is Daniel Farke, who Leeds have obviously had for the last 2 seasons. He's posted 90 plus points totals in the Championship season he's been in charge of, yet never really done it in the Premier League. So I think there are the case of clubs at the top of the Championship going for these managers who just get teams up and worry about the Premier League when you get there.
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to do. I think, like I said, a lot of Burnley fans at the time were frustrated, myself included. But let's get out of this league first. There's no guarantees. So bring a manager in that can get you out of the league. We might end up like Leeds, having a very good season, but just being a couple of teams better than us. Hopefully not. But I think he is one of them managers that probably is a little bit out of his depth in the Prem. But he may have learnt his lesson from the last 2 failures.
100% right. Let's finish with some fun questions before we get to our match predictions for the weekend. So first one I'm going to ask you, Josh, let's start with you. What's the best thing about Burnley Football Club? Or Burnley in general? And then I'm coming to you as well.
What's the best thing about Burnley? I like passport control, which is just on Reed. They're really efficient at getting you back into Blackburn and out of there. If you're being serious about it, listen, we are 2 very similar football clubs. We are just down the road from each other. When I've been to Burnley the last couple of times, I've got to say, since they've been promoted, they've spent some money on the stadium. It's nowhere near as bad as it used to be, my God. But, there is, of course, hatred for Saturday. But come Sunday, you can sit around, I'm going for breakfast with a load of dingles on the way in. We are very similar people. We are from very similar places. And I would hate to slander Burnley just for the sake of it until Saturday morning when I give them loads.
What about you, Joe?
Best thing about Blackburn, the market's quite nice. We've got a nice food hall.
Fantastic Indian stall on there.
Yeah. Okay. I were going to say Venkys, but I thought, when he gave a very nice answer, I thought, I can't do that now. But they've got a nice market hall in the town centre. I can't remember what it's called, the shopping centre that's underneath. But I'll go with that because there's some great food places in there.
Nothing about the football club then?
I can't do that.
If you could pick one player from the opposition team to take and put into your own, who would you pick?
The new Japanese lad, what's he called? He's a good finisher.
The King of Japan.
Yeah, he's a great player. I've not seen much of him. I literally watched the first half in the Derby match in the first game of the season. So I've not seen much of him. And again, it was playing against Derby, who I expect will be bottom of the league or there or thereabouts. But that finish where he just dink it over the keeper.
Yeah,
with that finish,
very Matt Anthony.
Yeah, it looked quite good. It looked quite good.
Yeah.
So I probably won't have him starting, but I think he'd be brilliant to bring off the bench.
No,
It's better than Luke McNally anyway, put it that way.
How about you, Josh?
We're in need of a keeper, so I'd take any of their keepers.
Yeah, well, I'll give you Trafford.
Well,
Even Trafford?
Yeah. Mate. Our keeper's a lovely guy, but he's made some howlers. Brownhill's such a good player at this level. I'd prioritise a proper player like Brownhill in the centre of the park. He's a really good player.
Good pick. Do you reckon he'll stay?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And then 30 seconds each is how we're going to finish before our predictions. Which club is bigger? I want you each to state your case. I'll give you 30 seconds on the clock. Why your team is bigger, just give it your all. So who wants to go first? Joe, start with you.
I'll go first because I know exactly what is going to be said about Premier League titles and stuff, which, we can sit here and we can respect, and I know that we haven't been able to achieve that yet. And I probably would have said 20 years ago, I would have agreed, because of the money, because of Jack Walker, because of everything he did for the club. And I know some Burnley fans do like to give him stick and stuff, but you've just got to respect it. He did every boy's dream. It was his club, and he won them the league title. You've got to sit there and respect it. But that was 20 years ago. They struggle to get 15,000 on these days. They constantly, always just about staying up and stuff, whereas we've spent the last 10 years. The majority of them in the Premier League. I think in the modern world and stuff like that, when you speak to people abroad and things like that, probably a lot more would have heard of Burnley than Blackburn. But that's just because of the way that they've been for the last 10, 15 years. And I would like to see us on a level pegging for a little bit, just to have a few good derbies and hopefully beat them for a few more seasons.
Very, very good. Right, Josh, 30 seconds to respond to that.
Well, Oasis have reformed today, and to paraphrase them, we've seen things they'll never see. Finishing 21st in the country is not an achievement. Neither is finishing 17th, 16th, 15th.
What about finishing 7th?
I mean, finishing 7th, is that even Europe? Was it Europe? Did you actually get to Europe?
We played Olympiacos at Olympiacos.
No, you played in Europe.
That counts.
You played in Europe, but never at European level. I think, honestly, and I'm not just saying this, to say that Burnley are a bigger club than Blackburn is ridiculous. It's not even remotely comparable. Yes, in recent success, they've played at high level and they've finished higher up the English pyramid. And yes, they've had more fans sat in the stadium, although I don't think that makes you a big club. But also, anyone of my age or older can remember when there was hardly any of them sat in a crumbling down stadium doing nothing for years and years and years. So to say that the last 10 years when we've had the Venkys shackle around our head has suddenly got past Premier Leagues, League Cups, playing in actual Europe.
And fighting on the pitch.
I mean, it's pure entertainment. There is no contest.
I'll stop you there. I think you went slightly over 30 seconds, but I'll let you off.
Yeah,
That was good. Right, let's finish with our match predictions for Saturday, 12:30 kickoff live on Sky. Scoreline and goal scorers, please. Josh, I'll start with you.
I think we'll score early. I think McTargay is going to be bang up for it. He's one hell of a character. If there's a game that you want him in, you can easily see him scoring 2, getting sent off and having a fight on the way off the pitch.
The dream derby day performance,
for
that
sure.
is, right?
This is a player that is built for these type of games. I think we go into it full of confidence with a strong 11, and I think we will score very early. I don't know whether we'll win. I'd love a draw. Like I said, I think the record is 6 consecutive wins. I don't want them to get 7. But yeah, I'll take a 1-1. But honestly, I could see us winning.
I'll push you for a score prediction though.
All right, I'll go 2-0 Rovers.
And you, Joe?
2-0 Burnley. I think they've got certain players like you mentioned that will try and sort of like bully us and try and ruffle our feathers, but I think we've got good enough players to be able to get past that. We might see a few frustrated Burnley players and Burnley fans and things like that, but I think ultimately our starting 11 is better than theirs. We've got home advantage. Our squad is better than theirs. I think ultimately we'll have a little bit too much for them. If they do score early, like you said, I'm a little bit worried that then the toxicity could come from the stands and the game could get away from us a little bit. But fingers crossed, we have a measured performance, and I'll say 2-0 Burnley.
The difference this time compared to 2 years ago is we've got players for this sort of game now. When you look at Hayden Carter, you look at Danny Bath, you look at Lewis Travis, Sander Tronstad, you look at Gay up front. There's a hell of a lot more fight and strength and physicality in our team now compared to the last time we played.
So you're ready for it?
I think we're more suited to it, for sure.
100%. Right, we'll move on to who's the most likely player to get sent off in this one?
Have we signed Hannibal yet? If so, I'll say him. If not, I'll go for Travis.
No, Travis will get a yellow and then he'll play fair and just do enough just to wind you up. Matt Gay could easily score 2 or 3, get sent off and have a bust up on the way out. The guy's brilliantly fun.
Absolutely love that. And we'll finish with our one wild prediction for the day. You can pick anything from the pub to the breakfast to the something on the pitch to, Scott Parker wearing something stupid. What was that jacket you wore the other day, by the way, wasn't it? 1,200 quid or something.
That jacket costs more than the average house in Burnley.
If there's anything unrelatable to the people of Burnley, it's that jacket. You don't see John Eustace doing that.
I've been wearing my bomber jacket for the last 3 games as well, but mine were 30 quid from Top Man, so not really comparable.
Right, one wild prediction apart from Scott Parker then. What are we going to go for?
I was going to go for Scott Parker to nick the corner flag, run into the centre of the pitch and plonk it in the middle, just like Souness did in the
We'll take that. Take that.
I think you're going to see an allegiance of Blackburn and Burnley fans align at 8 o'clock in the morning, all trying to get Oasis tickets. I think you're going to have a very quiet start to the day.
One thing I do want to quickly say, obviously, there's the Royal Dash pub, quite well known in Burnley. They put a status up this morning saying, just so you're all aware, at 8:45, because when the tickets go on sale, is it 9 a.m?
I think it's 8 for Island, 9 o'clock.
Yeah, at 8:45 we're going to stop serving for half an hour so all our staff can get tickets. So the main pub in Burnley is going to literally shut down for half an hour so they get Oasis tickets. So that's probably a fair shout.
It's going to be a very sober morning then in Burnley, isn't it, with no serving. Right, thank you very much both for joining me. I wish you the very best of luck for Derby Day. Make sure you follow these guys on social media. We'll put their links down below. But that is all for this episode of The Sportsman Untitled, and we'll see you next week.